The Milwaukee Bucks just traded their star franchise player in Giannis Antetokounmpo to the Miami Heat, and this is somewhat of a surprise, but not really. It's felt like over the past 2 years, maybe, the Bucks and Giannis have been at a disagreement over everything, and it's caused a little trade saga for the past 2 years to just be ongoing with no resolution until this morning. And it's crazy because, it's just wild to imagine Giannis in another uniform after his entire career being spent with Milwaukee in this huge trade saga that was ongoing and felt like it would never be resolved. But we're just going to dive into that today and sort of talk about the entirety of what this trade saga entailed. So to start, we have to go back to the beginning, and that would be the 2013 NBA draft, where the Bucks selected Giannis Antetokounmpo with the 15th pick, and at the time, nobody knew who Giannis was. He wasn't playing in the EuroLeague. It wasn't a highly publicized international prospect. He was really just a skinny teenager who was playing in Greece's second division, and most teams didn't view him as a future superstar. In fact, no teams did. The Bucks and everybody else, they were viewing him as a long-term project. And the Bucks at the time also weren't in a great place. They had just won 38 games, and they were really looking for a direction. And what they found in this draft was the player who would completely redefine the franchise for the next 13 years. So we get to Giannis' rookie season, and it's mostly just flashes, like most rookie seasons are. He averaged just under 7 points a game, and he looked overwhelmed physically every now and then. And, sometimes you would see something special out of the guy, he would go coast to coast or get a chase down block. But the potential, it was there, you could see it. But the finished product that we would end up getting, it was nowhere in sight at this point. And so over the next few seasons, Giannis starts transforming at a rate that nobody expected. He was getting stronger every offseason. His game was expanding every year. Under Jason Kidd, the Bucks began experimenting with him as a point forward and trying not to focus on him playing as a traditional power forward. They let him become something unique. He could grab a rebound and then push the ball himself, run the offense, guard multiple positions, and attack the rim in ways few players ever had the opportunity to. And so by 2017, the league realized Milwaukee had found a diamond in the rough. Giannis made his first All-Star team. He won Most Improved Player and become one of the rare players in NBA history to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks all in one season. The Bucks no longer, it wasn't just a promising young player at this point. It was a franchise cornerstone. So where do you go from this point if you're the Bucks? It's becoming contenders. And so they brought in Mike Budenholzer, legendary coach, in 2018, and the Bucks built an offense designed specifically around what Giannis was good at. They surrounded him with shooters, and they gave him just space and room to attack. And the results, they were immediate, blink of an eye. Milwaukee won 60 games during the 2018-19 season and finished with the best record in basketball. Giannis would go on to win his first MVP, and the Bucks would make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. For just a moment, it looked like Milwaukee was finally headed to the finals. They were up 2-0 on the Raptors, but then Kawhi Leonard happened. Toronto would storm back to win 4 straight games and win the series in 6. And, Milwaukee's season ended one step short of the finals. And what looked and felt like the beginning of what could be a dynasty felt a lot far less certain, However, the next year, Giannis got even better somehow. He won another MVP, and this year he got a DPOY, joining a tiny group of players to win both awards in the same season. Unfortunately, the bubble came along, and The Miami Heat beat the Bucks in 5 games, and suddenly the conversation surrounding Giannis would change. The questions were everywhere. I mean, everybody was asking, could he be the best player on a championship team? Was Milwaukee wasting his prime? Would he leave for a bigger market? And the final question, it was the biggest storyline in the NBA during 2020. Because, I mean, obviously Milwaukee isn't a big market, and teams across the league were preparing for the possibility that Giannis might become available with his contract expiring. Miami was a team that ironically was linked to him constantly. Dallas fans were just dreaming about pairing him with Luka, and Golden State looked at him as another superstar who could extend their dynasty. And Toronto was kind of hoping to repeat what they had done with Kawhi. And so the Bucks, seeing what was happening, knew that they had to act fast. And so what they did was they traded for Jrue Holiday in what is one of the biggest moves in franchise history. And shortly afterward, Giannis would sign a supermax extension worth over $200 million. And for Milwaukee, it felt like winning a championship before they actually won one. But then they actually did go out and win the real thing. The 2021 playoff run changed everything. Milwaukee would go back and get their revenge on Miami for the bubble embarrassment in the first round, and then the second round battle was where they were truly tested, maybe the most outside of the finals in this run. Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets were their opponent, and the series would go on 7 games. And it nearly ended with one of the greatest shots in NBA history, which is, it's one of the most infamous shots in NBA history without it being one of the greatest, because Kevin Durant would hit a jumper at the end of regulation in Game 7, and just like at a glance, it looks like a game-winning 3, but then big old shoes reveal that his foot was barely on the line. So this game would go into overtime. Kevin Durant wouldn't score in overtime, and the Bucks would live to see another day. So then we get to the Eastern Conference Finals against my Atlanta Hawks this year, and Giannis would go on to suffer a really gruesome knee injury, and everybody just assumed like this season was a wrap, it's over. But miraculously, I don't know what doctor my Milwaukee called up, but whatever they did, it worked, because a week later, after this gruesome injury, Giannis was back on the court. And so they would go on to beat Atlanta, and they would make it to the finals. Now, in the finals was waiting the Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton dominating, and Mikal Bridges. And so, the Bucks would fall to go down 2-0 to this team. But that's when Giannis really stepped up, He gave one of the greatest finals performances probably ever. He scored 41 in Game 2, 41 more in Game 3, 32 in Game 4, 26 in Game 5, and in Game 6 to close out the series, 50 points, including an iconic alley-oop from Jrue Holiday. This would, be their first championship since 1971, and Giannis had done what he had set out to do. He had brought a championship to the city of Milwaukee, and every criticism about, him not being able to perform in the playoffs disappeared like a snap in an instant. He was a champion, a finals MVP, and a Milwaukee legend. And looking back, at the time, this championship looked like, a promising future of things to come. But actually, it would just be the peak and the beginning of the end for the Bucks, because when they remained contenders after this, it didn't matter, because things would begin to unravel. Chris Middleton suffered many injuries. Milwaukee would lose a 7-game series to Boston in 2022, and then it just fell apart from there. 2023 was the Jimmy Butler year, where the top-seeded Bucks, they were just embarrassed in the first round by the Miami Heat. And because of that, Budenholzer was fired. And the front office, they knew changes were needed. Budenholzer was probably not the problem in this instant, but regardless. September 2023, Milwaukee made a huge franchise-altering move. They traded for Dame Lillard. And, the hope was obvious. they gave up Drew Holiday for this, but I mean, at the time it looked like, hey, we're giving up this great defensive player who we won a championship with, but in return we're getting one of the best shooters in NBA history, constant all-star, deep threat, some guy that is going to be scary in the pick and roll with Giannis, and greatest offensive guards in the NBA at the time, and the goal was just to make one final championship push at the minimum. And instead of that happening, the partnership between Giannis and Dame, it never reached, full potential. And I'm not sure what the reason for that was. It could have been coaching, because coaching changes were, there's a lot to be said about that. Adrian Griffin was the coach to start this era, and he went 30-13 before being fired, and they brought in Doc Rivers, which I think is a terrible hire. I don't think Doc Rivers is the guy for any team at this point in the NBA world, but regardless, then injuries started piling up, roster aging, defense declining. The Bucks remained competitive, but they didn't look like a dominant force anymore, and by 2025, whispers around the league began getting louder, and for years at this point, Giannis trade discussions, they felt like fantasies, but now it felt like a real, genuine possibility. And the problem here wasn't that Giannis hated Milwaukee, but it was that Milwaukee just couldn't find any more ways to improve. They traded picks, young players, changed coaches, acquired another superstar, and all these options put together, but they were just running out of options, and nothing seemed to be working. And so, 2025-26 season, rival teams began preparing offers, and it all felt like it was unraveling. We all thought a trade was going to happen at the trade deadline before the All-Star break, but nothing came about of that, and the Bucks said that they would wait to move in the offseason. And, the Rockets, they had a bunch of young players. The Knicks were reportedly interested in pairing Giannis with Jalen Brunson. Worked out that they didn't, though. Miami, they continue to lurk in the background because they always seem to be in conversation when the superstars mentioned. And, I think it's like a sort of ironic. This is a little off topic, but I think it's a little ironic that Damian Lillard said the only place he wanted to go was Miami, and then he went to Milwaukee instead for some reason, and everybody's like, oh my goodness, Milwaukee, they're going to be so scary to face, and then it ended up being an absolute disaster, and, now Giannis is the one in Milwaukee. But anyway, the Bucks faced a difficult reality, and Giannis was unwilling to commit long-term, and so, waiting for the Bucks, it only reduces their leverage. And so that led to the blockbuster trade that happened recently that officially ended what could be the greatest era in franchise history. And so the Bucks would trade Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis Jr. to the Miami Heat, and the Bucks would receive Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparas Xhaka, I don't know how to say his last name, I'm sorry, I apologize to you, Miami's 2026 first-round pick, an unprotected 2031 first-round pick, an unprotected 2023 first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap. And then there's some more second-round compensation, but that doesn't really matter. So the deal, it gives Milwaukee something that they lacked. It was youth and flexibility and a path for rebuilding, which is something that if you're going to move on from Giannis, you want. But for Bucks fans, it's sad because it's the end of a 13-year journey with possibly one of the greatest players in franchise history, 2 MVP awards, a Defensive Player of the Year, a Finals MVP, an NBA championship, countless franchise records, and most importantly, a championship delivered to a city that had waited half a century to celebrate one. And now that the Giannis area is over, it feels weird, man, because it just hasn't really processed. Imagining Giannis in another uniform it's just a hard thing to do, and it's going to take a lot of getting used to it. So, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, make sure to comment, let me know what you think about the trade, and don't forget to subscribe, and, wait for more awesome basketball videos to come in the future. And until next time, see ya.